Welcome back. We are ready to start chapter 2 in the math book. So you will need your math textbook and you will need your notebook where you're keeping your notes. And since I am still in the math section, I'm going to go to that part of my notebook. And let's just quickly glance through the notes that we've already made about place value, comparing and rounding numbers. And then when you get to the next blank page, go ahead and stop. My last one was that practice on rounding. So here I am at my next blank page, and let's section this off because it is a notes page. So I'm going to just take my pen or pencil and let me adjust my iPad so that I can actually draw. I'm going to make a line this way. And remember, just ignore my dots and lines. All you need to do is section off your page. You can pause the video at any time. Don't feel rushed. You just draw that funny eye shape and you have the sections that you're used to seeing now. And we're going to call this page Understanding Addition. Now, you may be able to add numbers very well. You may be able to do it in your head. But I need to be sure that you understand why you're doing it the way you're doing it. And so let's look at our textbook and then we'll come back to this page and make some notes. So if you have your math textbook, we are on page 18 and we are beginning Unit 2, where we will be studying addition and subtraction. And I want to remind you that tests want to be sure that you know why you're doing certain math steps. And that's what this video is about. So we're going to look at two-digit addition. You can add numbers in different ways. One way is to break apart each number into tens and ones. Another way is to draw models of the numbers. For example, you can use simplified drawings to model the values as shown below. So they're using a dot to model cubes, and they're using a line to model tens or rods. And then a third way is to use the addition algorithm. Align the numbers vertically and add by column. So I'm going to spend some time explaining each of these three ways to you, and you can decide the way that you want to do your own addition. So let's go back to our notebook, and I'm going to give us some numbers to work with. Let's just use the ones from their example, 17, 14, and 13. So here, let's write an example problem. And I'm going to back off a little bit on that pen. That's almost too thick. They updated my GoodNotes last night, and it's not the GoodNotes I'm used to. So I'm still feeling my way with this. But here's an example problem. 17 plus 14 plus 13. And again, you may be able to do that in your head. Let's go ahead. Well, I'm not going to do that. I was going to say, let's just go ahead and get an answer. But remember, my job is to make sure that you know why you're doing it instead of just doing it, if that makes sense. You may need to explain this to one of your children or grandchildren, and they may not be able to do it in their heads. So let's look at the three methods they talk about for adding. So the first one, and I want to follow the textbook, The first one is the break apart method. So let's go ahead and write it over here. This is called the break apart method. And here's how it works. You're going to write your numbers vertically. So you have 17, you have 14, and you have 13. Okay. So then we are going to break apart the numbers. So in 17, I have 1 rod and 7 cubes. That is 1 10 and 7 ones. In 14, I have 1 10 and 4 ones. In 13, I have 1 10 and 3 ones. So you see how I'm breaking those numbers into their place values. You could even draw a place value chart like we've done before. The table with the rows, that would be fine as well. So now remember we're adding. So let's go ahead and do the addition right here. So how many total cubes do I have? Use your fingers if you need to. Another way that helped me very much is to look for tens. There's 7 and 3, that makes 10, plus 4 more. So that would be 14 cubes. And then 1, 2, 3 rods. So 3 tens and 14 ones. But that's not our answer. 314 is not the answer we're looking for. So I'm going to take these 14 ones and separate them into 10. Let's just keep consistent here. 10 ones and 4 ones. Because remember, 10 ones becomes a what? A rod. That would be going into this column. So what I end up with, and you can almost see it right here. You see that 7 and 3 that I highlighted in green? That's the 10 ones, and that is that 110 that gets added to these. So when everything is done, I end up with, that's not what I wanted to end up with. Let's try it this way. I'm not sure I like the new GoodNotes. Okay, so this would be 4 tens, and I'll color them for you. If you have highlighters, color them with me. Those are our yellow ones. And then don't forget we had 4 ones left over. I'll make those blue. So my final answer, 4 tens, that's 40. 4 ones, my final answer is 44. Okay, so that's one way to add. And you might be thinking, Amanda, why am I going through that when I can just add in my head? But remember, the test is going to be structured in such a way they will test to see if you understand this theory, this reasoning that underlies the problem. Okay, so that's one method. That is not my favorite method, but that's the method I had to learn when I first learned to do addition. And you can use that for any numbers. It doesn't just have to be 2-digit numbers. All right, the next method they want us to talk about is the modeling method. Draw a model. So let's do the same problem a different way. So if you have children who are struggling to understand this in school, this is how you as a parent or a grandparent help them with this. So our example problem has not changed. We have 17. I'm going to leave some space on this one. And 13. Okay. So I'm going to just sketch. We'll just use their method. Remember, they are using a rod like that. That's their rod. That means 10. And then this is their cube. That represents 1. So let me back up just a second and get, if I can quickly do it, I'll just get a clip of, here we go. Let me try to just highlight this rod in this cube. This may not work, but it's worth a try. And then let me go back to our page. Sorry if that makes you seasick. Oh dear. Okay. I want to get rid of that. I want to bring that up here to be my cube and this up here to be the rod. So here is essentially what we're modeling. This is why we spent so much time on that first chapter to get you used to these concepts. So let me delete out what we don't need here. Oh dear. I should have thought ahead and done this before, but I think we'll be okay now. Okay. So here is the rod and the cube. We're going to not draw those. We're going to just use sketches to help us get those. Okay. So the 17 would be one rod. So one of those. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. The 14 would be one of those, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. The 13 would be one of those, and 1, 2, 3. So you will have scrap paper. Use it. Draw these things and help yourself any way you need to visualize this. So here are the green rods. We have 3 of them. And then I'm not going to color the cubes because I want to do something with that. So I have 3 rods. And then let's count these. I'm going to start at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And look at what we have. 14 of those dots, which represent the cubes. Okay. And if you recall, that's what we had right up here. 13 10s and 14 1s. We've got the same thing here, which we should have because it's the same problem that we're working. But look at this. This is why I like this method. What if I color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? So I have just created another rod. So instead of 3 rods, I now have 4 rods. And instead of 14 cubes, I only have 4 cubes. And so we have 4 rods, which represents 40. And we have 4 cubes, which represents 4. And so our final answer, no surprise, is 44. So that is another way to explain addition. The final method is an algorithm. And let's define that word. An algorithm is just a fancy way of saying a process. So we're going to use the addition algorithm. And remember, an algorithm is just a fancy way of saying the process, the addition process. And let me just glance so I don't get us confused. Write the total in expanded form. Okay, let me think about, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's the last column. Okay, so here's what we would do. To do this problem, we will add, let me look at 17 plus 14 plus 13. So the first thing you do is write your problem vertically, up and down. And then the first thing you have to do is count up your ones column. So let's look at these. Use your fingers if you need to. So I have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I will put down 4 and carry the 1. And I always taught my students to circle the number they carried so they could keep it separate. And then you will add your tens column. So you'll add all of those up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use your fingers if you need to. You don't have to do that under the table. Some people need that tactile touching to be able to do this. I'm one of them. If I can't use my hands, I can't concentrate as well. So don't worry about counting on your fingers. It's okay. So using the addition algorithm, you get 44. And here are the steps in the algorithm, in the process. Write the problem vertically, and that means up and down. Then you add the ones column. You're counting cubes. Carry if necessary. And then number 3, step 3, you add the tens column. And if you needed to, you could carry there. But this is just 2-digit addition for now. But let's go ahead and say that. Carry if necessary. Here's the main idea of this page. Make sure to understand why you do a math process. Trust me, you will never be good at math. You will never like math until you understand why you're doing it, because that's what builds to the next thing. I used to tell my students math is like building a brick wall. You can understand the bricks at the top, but if you don't have the solid foundation, somewhere there's going to be a crack in the wall, and it will be a serious crack. Make sure you understand why you're doing something. For additions, I would recommend drawing a model first. Draw a model. Make sure you understand that part. Then break apart. Make sure you understand that. And finally, the last thing you do is use the algorithm. The algorithm should always be the last thing you do, because if you understand the modeling, you will understand the algorithm a lot better. When I went to teacher school, they taught us to always model first and then work up to the algorithm, and students will always understand much better, and I do believe that.